And you're welcome back to Business Live. Now, expenditure for household in urban areas shot up by more than 12 cedis per week as a result of the third wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. This is part of the findings by the Ghana Statistical Service Third Wave Household and Job Tracker Survey, which is aimed at highlighting the plight of households after the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic. Here's a report.
The survey, which focused on expenditure for COVID-19 related activities, indicated that urban communities, especially in the coastal belt, spent at least 12 cedis more every week on personal protective equipment during the peak of the pandemic. Two-thirds of the respondents during the survey noted that their income levels have not recovered to pre-COVID-19 era. Also, almost 30% of respondents indicated that their overall household income stayed same as compared to the pre-pandemic period. Project coordinator Victor Boatin Owusu has been explaining at a press conference in Accra.
This is an extra income burden that the pandemic has brought onto the Ghanaian households. And we all know as every day our children go to school, we also go to work. And when we also want to enter public institutions, there's a need to use these PPEs. Therefore, it becomes more extra burden in terms of economic-wise for the Ghanaian public. Households in urban areas spend slightly more on PPEs than households in rural areas. And knowing that households in the rural areas move out into public space more than that of the rural. And on the third point, we are saying that 3 statistical zones, that's the savannah, the forest, and then the coastal. Households in the coastal zones spend most on the PPEs.
Deputy Government Statistician Dr. Faustina Frimpong noted that the survey is critical to the development of the economy post-COVID-19 recovery.
Daily increase is 169. We are still moving about freely. This is because of what has been able to be achieved over the years. As part of Ghana Statistical Service, our mandate is to provide information, timely information, to enable planners to be able to decide on what to do. And so when this pandemic came forth, Ghana Statistical Service, in collaboration with UNDP and the World Bank, initiated a household survey to be able to understand how people are accepting or the impact on their livelihoods and their own households, and how are they mitigating this or strategies put in place to be able to go through this.
The report further reveals that many Ghanaians have still not tested for the virus for the fear of stigmatization.
Now, government has suspended the license of Josedek Logistics Limited, a clearing, warehousing and logistics company subcontracted by Maxam Ghana Limited to transport explosives on its behalf. Now, this is to allow fair and impartial investigations into the Gore incident at Apiate, which claimed some 13 lives with scores injured. The Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Abujinapo, made this known during a parliamentary proceeding today.
The Minerals Commission is also carrying out its investigations to determine whether or not LI 2177 was complied with in the packaging, loading, marking, and transportation of the goods, the subject matter of the incident. To ensure fair and impartial investigations into and non-interference in the matter, on Friday, 21st February 2021, I, as the Minister responsible for Lands and Natural Resources, directed the Chief Executive Officer of the Minerals Commission to interdict the Chief Inspector of Mines, who, as I indicated earlier, doubles as the Chief Inspector of Explosives, pending the conclusion of investigations into this matter. I further directed that the registration of Maxam Ghana Limited with the Minerals Commission be suspended whilst investigations are conducted into the mode of their operations. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to these instructions, mine inspectors from the Minerals Commission on Saturday, 23rd January 2022, closed down Maxam Company Limited and stationed 2 mine inspectors there to guard the facility day and night. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, Monday, 24th January 2022, I received a preliminary draft report from the Minerals Commission. Following this report, I have since directed the Chief Executive Officer of the Minerals Commission to suspend the registration with the Minerals Commission of Josedek Logistics Limited, the subcontractor that was transporting the explosives. Investigations are ongoing to ensure that no breach of the regulations is allowed to go unpunished. Mr. Speaker, I expect the final report on this matter soon, and this will inform the next courses of action. Mr. Speaker, I have held separate meetings with management of Maxam Ghana Limited, Chirano Gold Mines Limited, and the leadership of the Ghana Chamber of Mines to discuss matters pertaining to health and safety in the mining industry and how to avoid such future occurrences.
The Ministry of Trade and Industry says it has initiated a market expansion program to support Ghanaian businesses with the potential to export to other parts of the continent. Now, according to the Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry, Herbert Krapa, over 150 companies have been identified and work is ongoing to identify their needs and provide support to them. He was speaking at the UPSA Law School Africa Trade Roundtable discussion. There's more in the following report.
The roundtable discussion focused on the relevance of the African Continental Free Trade Area competition protocols on Ghana's industrial transformation. They delved into how local businesses can expand and export their goods to other parts of the continent. Here is Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry Herbert Krapa on what his outfit is doing to support local businesses.
The ministry, through the National AFCFTA Coordination Office, has initiated a market expansion program designed to identify and support Ghanaian companies with potential to export to Africa. Over 150 companies have so far been identified, and work is ongoing to determine their specific needs and facilitation support to enable them enter and compete on the African market. African countries trade more outside the continent than within, and we must change this. Why must cotton from Burkina Faso travel across the Mediterranean only to be purchased by a Ghanaian industry from a European agent? Trade policies, whether for Botswana, Malawi, or Ghana, must be harmonized to produce and promote coordinated trade growth, coherent and geared towards boosting intra-African trade.
He explained that government has put in place a framework to ensure healthy competition for Ghanaian businesses in the Continental Free Trade Agreement area.
Also that we don't see cartelism and price fixing and all the negative effects of anti-competition, especially because of the expected boom in trade that the AFCFTA is going to bring to us. So this forum is a critical, very critical roundtable which has helped to put into perspective the issues of anti-competition. Whilst the competition protocols are being negotiated.
Industry players have described the competition law as a key component of every country's industrial policy, though it comes with shortcomings if not properly implemented.
Still to come, former finance minister makes worrying revelations about the current state of Ghana's economy. He's predicting an economic collapse if government does not get innovative about its expenditure and revenue mobilization.
Particularly with respect to compensation and interest. And as we speak, there are strikes, ongoing strikes. There's demand for high, more higher, and we need to refinance, as the professor said, in order that we'll get some breathing space. So yes, it's a critical, situation.
And thanks so much for staying with us on Business Live. Now, former Finance Minister Seth Terkper has indicated that the economy may collapse if government does not consider prudent measures to salvage the situation. Now, according to him, based on the assessment of Bloomberg and Fitch, there's sufficient evidence to suggest that the economy is not in a fine shape. He says numerous taxes charged on Ghanaians to rake in revenue is repressive. He believes Ghana should focus on its expenditure to sustain the revenue.
Number one, pull all the suggestions, including the debate in Parliament itself, because they often also consult and other things, and then stagger them. Some measures can be taken immediately. I don't know what compromise can be with the e-levy and the other. Remember, the benchmark is also hanging. The benchmark could have a bigger impact also. A decision on the benchmark, which is also may have been factored in the budget already. So then take the immediate ones, and then those which can be, deferred, slightly into mid-year, and then, but as the professors indicated, and as we believe, and as our experience shows, we're in a situation where it will take more than one financial year or one budget year to resolve. So we need to start thinking also. And it's when you have gotten the essence of getting the short term under control is to convince the markets that you have a plan. Because remember, when you go to the markets, you're borrowing for 10 years. So they're not looking at how you are managing today, but they are looking at what measures you are proposing, going forward before they commit their money to you. And some have committed money already, and which they are disposing of, which is why our yields or interest rates are going up. Whether a household, a business, or a country gets to the breaking point depends on taking measures to stem it. But the situation is difficult as it is now. I think it's quite clear, and I'm not the first or the last person to be saying it, particularly with respect to compensation and interest. And as we speak, there are strikes, ongoing strikes. There's demand for more higher, and we need to refinance, as the professor said, in order that we'll get some breathing space. So yes, it's a critical, situation.
So we're looking at a looming debt crisis, as the first speaker spoke about. It's as if nothing changes. We're looking at the worst case scenario, which is 95% debt to GDP ratio.
That is. Remember, he said into 2025, but he said for this year about 80. Some have said 85, between 85, 88, and then if you don't take any measures, it means you are just carrying on. So yes, that's a trajectory. But remember, I think we should also note, look, last year we were to issue bonds for 5 billion, right? We went to market for 3 billion. One of them was very expensive. It's not being highlighted. Everybody thinks that the highest bond we have issued is 10.2%. No. We were to get 500 million for the zero coupon bond, right? If you were to take it normally and pay interest, the money we brought home was around 350, which means that we gave up 150. That's what it means, right? So you can do a simple interest. So already, because of that lack of market access, that's the only reason we went into that structure. And then we couldn't do, the remaining 2 billion, and the year ended. And Fitch and others have expressed doubt whether we can go to the market this quarter, which means that you need to do, so we are in the crisis already.
We now turn our attention to the controversial 1.75% electronic levy. Now, we know that the government is pushing hard to get it passed in Parliament, but Ghana's umbrella business community, the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, is sending worrying signals over the 1.75% electronic levy, calling for an immediate downward review between 0.5% to 1%. Now, Clement Osei Amwako is the president of the chamber. He spoke earlier on the marketplace.
You need to look for money to be able to spend. And then, apart from that, then it came with a levy of the 1.75%. What the chamber is saying is that we are just nursing our injury after the COVID effect. And a lot of businesses are still crawling. And we are much aware that it's the private sector that creates jobs. We also pay profit tax and some services tax to the government. Now, we are looking at the hen that lays the egg. That if we are not able to treat the hen very well, we might not even get the egg. The government is imposing 1.75 levy, and we know the statistics that we have. Even other countries have not benefited from that, and most of them were even below 1%. Now, how do we support it? What we are saying is that as a nation, we must pay tax to support the government. But we are saying that the 1.7 was very high.
All right.
Because when you look at the SMEs, they form a lot of the chunk in this, what we call the Momo transaction. And even those within the banks, that where you have some big businesses who have gone for loans and they are paying their money, doing some transfers, etc.
Sure.
I believe that tax is applied on production, that you produce goods and services you pay. Now, I expected that even the telecommunication industry and those that are involved doing the transactions.
Well, meanwhile, founding dean of the School of Graduate Studies, Professor Goskialabi, has called for consensus among relevant stakeholders on the e-levy bill before Parliament.
I think leadership is all about consensus building and understanding.
Sure.
Because in leadership, you do not have absolute power. There is no absolute power in leadership, because leadership is an interaction which involves the negotiation of power.
Indeed.
Between the members involved and the leader. And so it's always important to realize that you need to engage, you need to consult, you need to involve. And so I believe that we wouldn't have been where we are at the moment with the e-levy if adequate consultations had been done in the past.
Great.
And so, rightly so, if we are hearing that consultations are now going on,
Great.
I believe that we're going to make a headway.
Sure.
And the will of the people would prevail in the end.
Now let's talk about the Forestry Commission, because the Commission has launched 2 digital platforms that allow registration and renewal of property marks to be completed in a day. Now, instead of 2 months, the platforms are expected to help end frustrations and bureaucracies associated with the registration and renewal of property marks by timber merchants. Now, property mark is a registration which assigns a unique identity to timber contractors in all dealings with the Forestry Commission. The platforms allow registrants to complete all registration and renewals of property marks in the comfort of their homes and offices in a day. Ohim Intewia has more in this report.
The Forestry Commission also introduced apps developed by its staff that allow officials to monitor and track wood in the forest electronically. Speaking at the launch of the online platforms at the Chankrum near Ejiso, Chief Executive of Forestry Commission, John Alote, lauded the relief the platforms bring to industry players.
Before this application, a contractor who, for instance, operates in 3 regions and 5 districts will have to go to all the 5 districts and physically present the required documents and obtain clearance at all the districts. He will then go to all the respective regions and secure clearance. This is not all. The contractor will have to assemble and display all these multiple clearance at the headquarters of the Forestry Commission for him to qualify for the renewal of the property mark. And he or she will have to do this twice in a year. Averagely, information from the industry indicates that it takes about 2 months to go through this process. With this new application, it will be possible to renew this property mark in a day at 1 district of your choice.
Industry players like the Forestry Industry Association of Ghana and the Ghana Timber Millers Organization spoke of how they intend to cash in on the new platforms.
The time-consuming nature of renewing property marks and the constant request for information by one unit or department of the Forestry Commission that might already be in the custody of another division has been some of the challenges we have to contend with. The introduction of these innovative platforms is a good indication of how collaboration with the Forestry Commission to address business challenges of the industry is beginning to yield dividends.
It is the hope of industry that the electronic wood tracking system has come to remove all the challenges associated with the documentation of timber harvesting and timber product transportation.
So how does the new platforms work? Chris Berko is Director, Timber Validation at Forestry Commission.
We are able at a glance to have at our fingertips how many timber rights are in the system. Previously, you would have to call for managers to put documents together, but because of this system, you can just come and there's a dashboard that tells you we have so many timber rights in the system, we have so many species that are moving, we have so many exporters, so many flag licenses that have been issued.
From Kumasi, Ohim Intewia reporting.
And that's all time will allow us on Business Live tonight. My name is Blessed Sugan. For more business news, log on to myjoyonline.com.